I recently had the pleasure of teaching a workshop to Sonia Nunez, who's a repeat student. And she brought along this beautiful vintage 8mm projector, which we did a photograph of using light painting. And this is the image that we shot. But we thought that it would be interesting to have a different kind of background. So we decided to photograph the projector uh, separately, closer up and from a low angle, to use as the background image. This tutorial is all about how to make the background stay in the background and not fight for attention. So we created a channel which knocks out the background from the projector image, the main projector image. So we'll just create a selection and create a mask. And we can see that the background is really fighting for attention. So how can we make that a little bit more subtle? Well, there are several ways. We can use blurring, we can use exposure, and we can use color, as cool colors tend to recede and warm colors tend to come forward. Well, let's go ahead and get started. First we'll use a blur, and I like the look of a Gaussian blur when it is decreased by lowering the opacity in our opacity slider. So first let's go ahead and apply a blur, Gaussian blur, and let's blur it just a little bit more than we think we'd really like to. So we'll go pretty heavy-handed here because we're going to dial it back. So now we'll take that blurred layer and we'll dial back the opacity, and we get this beautiful kind of silky blur that you just don't get with a straight Gaussian blur. That looks pretty nice. Maybe we'll take that up just a little bit. Okay. So now that looks great, but I think it could be slightly darker on the right-hand side. So we'll do a quick levels adjustment layer. And let's go ahead and pull down on the highlight end of the output level slider, which mainly affects only the highlights. So yeah, that's pretty nice right there. But it has also darkened the left side of the image, maybe a little too much. So we'll just go ahead and apply a gradation to the mask that we have on that adjustment layer, which will mask away the adjustment layer from the left side, giving us darkening only on the right. That looks terrific. And I think we could do another step, which would be to colorize or change the color balance, but I'm going to go ahead and use a hue saturation adjustment layer. Click the colorize button and just sort of choose a nice blue color. I think we could desaturate that a little bit. And there we go. So now we've got the color working for us as well to separate the background from the foreground. And one thing I've noticed is we have a lot of dark areas in the background as well as a bunch of dark areas in the foreground. So maybe we could change those dark areas a bit in the background to further separate the background. So let's go ahead and fill with a foreground color that we've already chosen. There it is. And we're going to go ahead and change the blending mode to screen. There we go. And let's just dial that opacity back a bit. So what I'm looking to do here is to just fill in the shadow areas in the background with a little bit of this blue color, which will make the front projector separate even more from the back. So there we go. That looks great. All right. So I think we're finished here. Let's just take a look. We're going to turn off all of the changes we made. So there is our original background, which is fighting for attention. We blurred it. We darkened it on the right side. We applied a kind of a tint to push it to the blue side. And then we added this overall tint, which lightens the shadow areas and makes them cooler. Very good. And one last little touch is our illumination coming out of the lens. Well, thanks for joining me. This was a nice image to photograph with Sonia, and she did a great job as usual. And we'll see you next time.